Pretty much every single state in America has a flagship program, which is just titled the state's name followed by university, or maybe the university comes before. Also, these schools typically are good at sports and are considered the most major program in the state. In the Midwest, schools like Illinois, Indiana, Michigan, Kentucky, and West Virginia all had their main state school become good at football, but it wasn't the case in Ohio. Ohio State is clearly the main program in the state of Ohio, but the Ohio Bobcats got left behind. Despite being the state school, they never got to really take off as a football program and never got to the Power 4, Power 5 status. While they're one of the best programs in the MAC each and every year, in today's video, I want to do a program spotlight and talk about why the Ohio Bobcats never developed into a Power 4 program, talk about their program's history, and what the future looks like down in Athens. But before we get started, if you're a big fan of college football, be sure to subscribe to the channel, leave a like if you support today's video, and let me know what player, team, topic, or situation I can cover next. Now let's get started and talk about the history of Ohio football. To me, what is weird about Ohio is that they have two professional football teams in both the Cincinnati Bengals and Cleveland Browns, and are near the top in terms of total FBS programs, but just a couple of years ago, before Ohio joined the Big 12, Ohio State was the only one. Toledo was one of the better teams in the MAC, and Mount Union is a power at the D3 level, but as I said, today is all about Ohio. Ohio University was founded in 1809, almost 60 years before Ohio State was founded. So how come they're in the MAC and Ohio State is competing for national championships and winning them? Well, before we get into the reasons why Ohio never became a power football program, we need to go back in time and look at their history. Their first season was in 1894, which is actually 4 years after Ohio State's first team played in 1890. While OSU was instantly a pretty large school, Ohio was always small. They ended up joining the Athletic League of Ohio Colleges, along schools like Otterbein, Wittenberg, and Marietta, which are small colleges today, and that conference did not last long. Like a whole bunch of Midwestern schools, Ohio had a new coach pretty much every year. They started out really inconsistent, and they'd have a good year followed by a few bad ones. In 1924, they hired Don Pedden to lead the team, and he's the guy who actually has the football stadium named after him in Athens. He led the Bobcats to a 121-46-11 record from 1924 to 1946, had 2 undefeated seasons, and they won the Buckeye Athletic Conference 6 times before going independent. That coach was also the Bobcats' head coach when they joined the MAC, which was all the way back in 1946. Since joining the MAC, the Bobcats have won 6 MAC championships, but in 1960, the Bobcats also went 10-0 and won the AP and UPI Small College National Championship. There was once a time where national champions were picked by how big the school was, with national champions and smaller national champions, meaning that Ohio is one of the few MAC schools that technically has a national title. But it wasn't until 2005 that the Bobcats started to get consistently good, and it happened under one specific coach, Frank Solich. Coach Solich had come off of 6 seasons as being the head man at Nebraska, where he went 58-19 and won a Big 12 title in 1999. But that wasn't good enough for the mighty Huskers, so they fired him. He ended up finding his way to Athens, Ohio back in 2005, and after taking the Bobcats to a 4-7 first season, he then would go 9-5 with a MAC Eastern title in 2006. He coached for the Bobcats until 2020 before he would retire. Solich ended up going 115-82 and also went 5-6 as bowl games and won 4 MAC East titles, but never got a conference title. When he retired, Tim Albin stepped in to be the head man, and he'd go 33-19 with the Bobcats as the head coach and also won 2 bowl games. He then left to accept the head coaching job at Charlotte for the 2025 season, and I have to admit, that's a total downgrade in my eyes. But despite all these successes, Ohio is still a small school in a conference that isn't all that competitive on the grand stage. Ohio has gone 324, 389, and 9 since joining the FBS, with a win percentage of just under 47%. Their all-time record, including in the small college division, is 608, 587, and 48, or just under 51%. In those 63 seasons, they've only gone to 16 bowls, though they've won half of them, and only won 5 conference titles. They've also been ranked in the AP poll for a total of 9 weeks. On top of that, they aren't necessarily a hugely strong school in any of their sports, meaning that they wouldn't get added to a power conference because of other programs. They don't have the greatest facilities either, as their stadium only seats about 25,000 people, and while Ohio has been competitive for a while and just won the MAC, they aren't really seen as a consistent conference threat. Their 5 conference titles have them tied at number 6 with Ball State, and then they're behind Northern Illinois, Central Michigan, Toledo, Bowling Green, and Miami of Ohio. They place 8th in the conference in terms of all-time winning percentage, and only 3rd in terms of all-time wins, despite placing 2nd in terms of bowl appearances. They compare well to the Cincinnati Bearcats, because the Bearcats were a member of the MAC from 1947 to 1952, and during that short window of time, the Bearcats only placed 1st or 2nd in the conference, winning 4 conference titles. The Bearcats won 4 titles in 5 years, while it took the Bobcats over 60 years to win 5. Cincinnati saw an opportunity to build their program into something bigger, and was willing to jump around to different conferences, including going independent a few times, being a part of the Missouri Valley, Conference USA, and even the American, before joining a power conference in the Big 12. It took forever. Ohio, on the other hand, has not changed their conference affiliation since joining the MAC. Cincinnati's all-time win-loss record is 667, 615, and 50, around 52%, and they've won 10 of 22 bowl games. They're honestly pretty comparable to Ohio in football terms, but they had the money and the means to keep pushing for improvement. Plus, they had a really good basketball program to rely on, and that would keep them attractive in the conference realignment world. Ohio, on the other hand, just doesn't really have any of that. Then there's the money issue. In early 2023, the Ohio University Athletics Department was ranked 116th out of 232 Division I schools in terms of athletic department's revenue, with just over $29 million per year. This placed them behind MAC schools like Akron, Eastern Michigan, and Toledo, and only in front of Ball State, Kent State, Bowling Green, and Northern Illinois. But what's more embarrassing, and what really puts it into perspective, are the teams that were ahead of Ohio. Illinois State, which is an FCS team in the Missouri Valley, Missouri State, who's now in the FBS, and New Mexico State, who was in the WAC for most of their sports, were ahead of them. Obviously, these numbers have changed since teams moved to different conferences, so it's likely New Mexico State is actually making more money than Ohio now, but it's making it pretty clear that not only does Ohio not do much with their money, there's not much room for them to improve with a larger budget, and things are just kind of tough. Being in the MAC hasn't helped the Bobcats for a number of reasons, but one of the reasons that flies under the radar is that MAC fans on average are not diehard fans of their teams, meaning they aren't as much of a force in television ratings. While things like weeknight MACtion were fun for fans that aren't involved with the MAC, it made it harder for fans of those teams to actually want to go to those games. I mean, who wants to go to a football game on Tuesday or Wednesday night? This has led to a few years of MAC fandom, but in general, it's all declining. If people aren't watching your team on TV, there isn't much reason for them to come to your stadium to watch your games in person, and it's going to be really hard to convince a power conference to add you. Athens is technically in the Columbus media market as well, meaning that most eyeballs are going to Ohio State football games if they want to watch a local game. That also means that Ohio doesn't add much worth when it comes to TV viewership, making it really hard to add for a power conference. But speaking of Ohio State, the most prominent reason why the Bobcats aren't in a power conference is probably because of their younger brother down the road. Ohio State is a massive university with over 60,000 students enrolled, and Ohio only has 13.5. Pretty much everywhere, Ohio is dominated by Ohio State, and this is a problem that even Cincinnati has had. Ohio is a big state with a lot of people who love football, but so many of them are already tied to Ohio State when it comes to power conference football, and it's hard to change those eyeballs or money. There were a few moments when there were some rumors of the American talking to a few MAC teams, as I believe Northern Illinois, Toledo, Buffalo, and Ohio were some of the teams that they were talking to, but obviously none of those conversations came to fruition, and the American Conference added schools from Conference USA instead. If that had happened, I could see Ohio maybe starting to grow a little bit more with better resources and different opponents, but would it have gotten the students and fan base to care more in general? That is a question I can't really answer. But in 2025, I don't necessarily see much changing, as the American seems like a pretty stable conference now, but I don't think that if the ACC gets raided, they'd be looking to add any programs from the MAC, other than maybe Buffalo or Toledo. In general, there are a handful of reasons why Ohio has not grown to be a power conference member, as they've been competitive in the MAC, but generally are not considered to be a good football program. That has also combined with MAC fans not showing up to games, a small enrollment, a weaker conference. Most people would rather be an Ohio State, a Bengals, or a Browns fan. Again, it's nothing against Ohio, as Athens is a beautiful part of the state. They have, in my opinion, a really cool color scheme, and they also gave us the Rourke brothers. I know Indiana fans are happy about that. So Ohio has had their moments, and in the basketball world, they did have a good 2021 season, in which Jason Preston and the Bobcats ended up upsetting Virginia, a team that always gets upset. But other than that, they've been pretty forgettable. They've got the Rourkes, they've gotten one early round upset, and in general, they're just sort of a smaller school that's the little brother to Ohio State that nobody really talks about, but isn't that bad either. In terms of terrible MAC opponents, everyone always brings up Akron or Bowling Green, but Ohio is just above average. That's why they're not a Power 4 school, But what do you guys think? If you're an Ohio fan, why do you think you guys have never become a Power 4 team? What's holding them back, and what school should I do a spotlight on next? Be sure to let me know down below, leave a like if you want to support today's video, subscribe if you're new, and check out all of the videos on the end screen, including my video about the downfall of Temple football. Hope to see you guys again soon, but until next time, peace.